Hi, my name is Deepak Malhotra, and I'm a professor of negotiations at Harvard Business School. I'm also co-author of the book Negotiation Genius and author of the book Negotiating the Impossible. In this series of videos, I'm talking about the topic of negotiation, and in each clip, I talk about one key idea, an approach, a tactic, or a principle that I hope will help you as you navigate your own deals and disputes. In this video, I want to talk about negotiating in a crisis. And I want to share 5 ideas with you that will hopefully help you the next time you find yourself negotiating a deal or a dispute in the middle of a crisis. In my experience, leaders and negotiators who follow these 5 principles outperform those who either don't do these things or don't do them systematically enough. So what are the 5 things you want to keep in mind? First, get your team together. This is not the time to rely only on your intuition or your point of view. Bring together a team of people you trust, colleagues, co-workers, your management team, partners, who will give you their honest opinion even when they disagree with you, who might see things that you're not seeing, who have a different point of view on matters, or who have different expertise than you do. Bring the team together no matter how limited the time to resolve the crisis or to launch your strategy. Second, on the issue of time, buy yourself as much time as you can. Now, a crisis is defined as a limited amount of time to solve a really big problem. But even in those moments, you want to buy yourself as much additional time as you can to make decisions. You want to make sure that if you were going to send an email right now, you try to wait 15 minutes or an hour or two, revisit it before you send that email. If you were going to pull the trigger on a strategy tonight, see if you can buy yourself some time, sleep on it, revisit it in the morning, and then decide whether it still makes sense. That additional time can be invaluable. Sometimes your perspective changes. You reflect and you change your mind about what would be the best way forward during that time. Other times, new information comes up that you might decide changes the course of action you should be taking. You learn something new about the crisis that you're in, about the environment that you're in. So buying that additional time is extremely useful in a crisis situation. Third, zoom out. It is very easy in a crisis situation to start focusing narrowly on what happens tomorrow and to focus narrowly on the stakeholders who are being loudest and whose demands are most pressing. You want to zoom out on both of these dimensions. Don't just think about how to get through the day today and how to get to tomorrow. To the extent possible, think about a month from now, a year from now, and 10 years from now, and see if you can try to optimize for your interests in the longer term, given the constraints of the crisis. The same thing is true when it comes to stakeholders. Too often, in a crisis situation, we're only paying attention to the people who are loudest. We're only paying attention to the people who are making their demands most known to you in the here and now. What you want to do as a leader or a negotiator is to step back and take inventory of all the stakeholders and what their needs are and what their interests are today and going into the future. And try again to optimize for that portfolio of stakeholders to the extent that you can, to the extent that is appropriate given the constraints of the situation you find yourself in. So first, get your team together. Second, try to buy yourself some more time. Third, zoom out and make sure you're keeping an eye on all the stakeholders and make sure you're keeping an eye on a much longer time frame than just getting through the day. The fourth thing you want to do is to make sure in a crisis that you take time to audit your strengths. It's very easy to get bogged down with the problems that you're dealing with, to get cynical, to get pessimistic, to start worrying and get anxious and think about all the things that can go wrong in the negotiation or that can go wrong in the strategy. But no matter how bad the situation is, you likely have some assets that you can leverage in the negotiation. You likely have some sources of leverage, and too often negotiators, especially in a crisis situation, lose sight of that. You want to make sure you audit and inventory what are the strengths that you bring to the table. What are sources of leverage that you could rely on to get a better deal or to get a better outcome? And fifth, now is the time for you to use your mission and your organization's values as a filter for making the decisions that you need to make that are really difficult. A crisis situation is when your mission statement and your value statement and your vision statement really pay dividends. Most of the time, these things just sit on a website or they just sit on a plaque on the wall. In a crisis situation, leaders and negotiators who use their mission statement as a way to filter what they will and will not do, who use their values to decide what they will or will not do, which strategy is or is not appropriate, end up negotiating and strategizing in a way that they can look back on once the smoke clears, once the crisis is over, once they've weathered the storm. They can look back and they can say, despite the problems that they ran into, despite the crisis that they encountered, they were able to navigate it in a way that was consistent with their mission and consistent with their values. Leaders and negotiators that do these 5 things, they get their team together, they buy themselves some time, they zoom out, they make sure they audit their strengths, and they make sure that they use their mission and the values of their organization as a filter for making hard decisions, end up negotiating much more effectively in a crisis. Good luck.